Guys, today I'll be talking about the very first trigger. The first trigger where actually science meets the universal spirit. So here I am, and here I am to share this sort of thing with you. Hello, hi, and I welcome you all. I am Arfat Firdous, and today I basically invite you to slow down. I invite you to cool and calm down, not only with your mind, but also with your inner awareness, the inner feelings, the innerness, the insideness. This is not any kind of debate that I'm sharing with you. It's not a debate, and at the same time, this is not a lecture basically meant to conquer the ideas. It doesn't have that sense as well. This is basically a shared moment, a moment of sharing, a moment of sharing the reflections of uh, this universe. A moment where science and the inner sense that we have, they can sit together in a very beautiful silence. So let's begin, and before light, before any kind of form, before time knew basically how to move on, how to flow. Let's begin. Before the beginnings had any kind of language. So if you imagine, I mean, imagine a condition where nothing was missing. There was nothing that was missing at all, and nothing was excessive. Nothing missing and nothing excessive. No directions. So there were no directions, no distance, no separation. But there was something. What was that? I mean, call this thing as stillness. There was some kind of stillness. But at the same time, it was not emptiness. It was not any kind of void. It was a stillness that was complete in all forms. And if we think in many spiritual traditions, for the sake of argument, this state is described, maybe this state is described as the wholeness, the completeness. And in the framework of science, we might describe it something as a perfect balance, because nothing happened. It's that stillness that I'm talking about. I'm talking about before the imbalance was there. I'm talking about the different words with the same intuition. A reality so unified that nothing needed to change. Absolutely perfect. the whole. And yet here lies a deep, strong truth. A perfect balance is delicate. And this delicacy can be connected, what's called as sacred. The delicacy in the balance of that stillness that was there. And now we arrive at the heart of the story that I'm trying to share here, that I'm trying to talk about, that I should feel is the first trigger. The trigger, I'm not talking about an explosion. I'm talking about the trigger, not an explosion. I'm not talking about the chaos. What am I talking about is a gentle intention within that stillness itself. The stillness that we are trying to define. A subtle preference for experiencing, maybe for experiencing something over the silence. In scientific language, we may call this a tiny departure from the symmetry that existed when there was nothing, when there was no universe. There was a tiny departure from the symmetry of that stillness. Maybe in spiritual language, we may call it a will to express, a will to start, a will to bang, not force, maybe not a command, but the will, the permission, to give that trigger, permission for the difference to appear in that stillness that was there, that was always there. And once the difference in that stillness exists, the relationships become possible. The difference leads to the relationships. This is what I call the first trigger, the first moment, the moment unity allows basically the diversity without losing the harmony, without losing the balance, but a gentle departure, a gentle difference. And from this gentle intention, motion becomes possible. The objects, the particles, the motion becomes possible. And when you have the motion, there is a change. So motion leads to the change. There is an appearance of change. Now, while there is a change, what's going to enter? The time will quietly enter there. Not as a clock. It's not entering as a clock that we have a convention, but basically as a sequence. Something that supports that motion before and after, cause and maybe the response. And the same thing in spiritual reflection, This is often seen as awareness, turning towards an experience. When you try to understand it from spirituality point of view, you realize it that way. The universe does not rush. At least we can realize it. It doesn't. It unfolds. It uncovers like a thought, slowly becoming a word. Slowly transforming into a word. And energy begins to move. It moves from the spirituality point of view. Patterns begin to appear because of that simple trigger. The order begins to express itself through consistency. There's a long-range consistency going on and on. And this is not the randomness from spirituality point of view. This is coherence. And coherence is the backbone of the quantum entanglement. It's the backbone of the quantum computers. As motion continues, space gains the meaning. The space has the meaning due to the motion that it acquires. Because now things they can relate, they can compare, they can have comparisons. Here, there, here, near, far. There are comparisons between the two states. And there are interactions between the different states. And some patterns go on. Some patterns maybe endure. They keep on going. And stability emerges. And from stability, structure is born. It's the stability of the atom. It's the stability of the nucleus. It's the stability of the molecules. Atoms are not an accident. They are a result of that stability. There are agreements of balance between the positively charged nucleus and the quantum mechanically roaming electrons. Stars are not random. They are not random. They are because they are basically an expression of that stability. They are an expression of that harmony. But at the same time, if I try to endorse the same thing in spirituality, this is often called order. This is often called order. And in science, we call it a natural law. Of course, this order is basically transforming into the disorder, but you have that span of stability. You may have these two different frameworks, but they are referring the same reverence. And we can talk about the consciousness as a continuation. Now you consider this gently imagine this. If the universe began, it began with an intention, then there is awareness. And this awareness is not accidental. It doesn't seem to be an accidental kind of awareness. Because it's not only the humans who are aware, the animals and plants who are aware, the whole universe itself is aware. It's a continuation. You cannot boil down it to the humans or animals or mammals or whatever you have. The same reality that allowed the motion in the universe, the same reality that allowed the structure of these atoms and molecules, the same reality that allowed the formation of these stars, eventually allowed reflections. It allowed the reflections, the universe learning to look at itself. Maybe right now, it can be the human race from our point of view. We are a reflection of the universe that's triggered. When we think, when we wonder, when we ask the questions, these questions are raised by the universe itself to be understood. We are not separate from the story that I was talking about. We are the part of that story. Our part is extremely small. We are part of its unfolding awareness. The universe is understanding through us. Talking about science, what science does, it studies the patterns. It looks for the patterns around. And what spirituality does, spirituality listens to the meanings. Together, they form a complete picture. Science and spirituality, they make something more fundamental, more realistic, something that whispers. So when we ask, what started everything? Perhaps the answer to this question is not the noise. Maybe it's not the noise. Maybe it's not the violence. Not noise, not violence, but a sacred whisper. A sacred trigger, a moment when this stillness chose expression, the stillness that we dream about, the stillness that we talk about, the stillness that we feel about. When unity is allowed, the relationships automatically emerge. When silence gave birth to the experience that we experience now, this whole visible universe. What was that? It was the first trigger. The first trigger did not end this calm. It simply transformed the calmness of this stillness into the meaning. Everything has a meaning, and that meaning that you have, and that meaning eventually has led to the stars. It has led to the thought. It has led to the awareness. And to this moment right now, I'm standing in my room. It's me. Who am I? I'm Arfat Firdous. And this is how science and universal spirituality may be describing the same beginning